Anthony Dezilva, I'm the product manager for security services for phoenixNAP. We kind of covered that. I'm actually a PhD student as well, so if you're interested. Basically, my topic is really on kind of the effects of burnout on cybersecurity professionals and actually making that an academic thing that says, yes, this is really something that's going on in the industry, right? Because today, we've got all these studies in the industry. We just don't have it on the academic side. And if it's not in the academic side, it doesn't get into the kind of the psychology stream of things. So anyways, moving on that. So the premise of today's conversation is the white paper that we did, right? And we're talking about the top 3 vulnerabilities of virtualization in sense, storing data in the cloud. That is one, so storing data in VMs in the cloud. That is a big conversation. And I want to just kind of touch on some points on there. And not like I have a solution we're going to talk about, but we're going to at least kind of touch on some things that we've seen in the industry, some of the things we're doing at phoenixNAP to support our customers dealing with this, and kind of help not have as many breaches as we've had, and help not have any mistakes that lead to data breaches out there. Again, increasing the attack surface. We're going to talk a little bit about IoT and all these devices that access our data, and we're going to talk about kind of I don't think it's a big secret that we have a skills shortage. And I think that's a really big risk, especially in this space, because as long as we have the skills shortage, we're really going to struggle to get ahead of this game, right? Now, is cloud really a thing? There's actually some interesting numbers I found when I was doing the research for this that I want to share. And it's around kind of hybrid cloud and the movement towards this hybrid cloud model. And if you wonder what hybrid cloud is, we'll definitely talk about it when we get there. And then, as I told you, I have you guys, I'm going to run through our product set. So, that being said, file systems. When we look at data anywhere, whether it's data in the cloud, data on our servers, we're looking at CIFS shares, we're looking at FTP data sets, we're looking at NFS data shares, we're looking at databases, buckets, backups are also data, right? These are all things that we're having all over the place. These are all things that have been captured by people that shouldn't have access to that data, and they've found confidential information inside of it. So, kind of standard how we do things today, right? On a net. Oh, okay, what did I do? There's my laser. There we go. CIFS share. Non-encrypted traffic. If you look at this, which one would you prefer? What do you think is a safer route? On a cloud share? Now what? Better? Going back to the network share, right? Here's the problem. That data is decrypted in transit, right? The minute somebody goes, you can have the data encrypted on a file storage system. You do an SMB connection to it. You go open up PowerPoint slide. What happens to Wireshark? If you're watching that network on Wireshark, you got the whole file, right? That's still going to be a problem. We haven't got past that. Whether that data is sitting on a network or whether that's data sitting in the cloud, we've got to start to figure out what we can do around that, right? This is one of those things. Attack vectors. Again, misconfigured servers. We've seen that happen. Bugs, obviously standard, right? There's a bug, you're going to get access to that data. Malware and rats, you can't get around that, right? You can have a server encrypted with the Intel technology, with Windows encryption, all of that stuff. The minute that machine is running and somebody gets access to that machine, it doesn't matter what your encryption at rest is, they've got access to that data, right? Obviously negligence. From a risk perspective, definitely unencrypted data or weakly managed data. But here's another big problem. What happens when that happens, right? We're really good at, okay, we're going to encrypt these things, we're going to do these things, but we do a crappy job of key management. And that happens. Yeah, well, I don't know. Let's not go there. Increased attack surface. When we look at data, we also have to look at who's creating that data, right? As humans, humans in business, we've created this data, we create PowerPoint slides, we create Word documents, we do all of these things, we access them from all these different systems, but now we're getting into life support systems, where our pacemakers are connected and feeding in, our Apple Watches are feeding in cholesterol data and heart rate data and all these things. This is becoming more of a thing. We're starting to rely on the data this thing is collecting to basically live our lives. But then what about all this other stuff, right? M2M, machine to machine. There's reports out there about kind of how we're tracking our car utilization to manage traffic flows and our car utilization, outside of all the marketing stuff, right? There's some real applications around how this kind of data can actually make our cities better, make our lives better, make things easier on us, make our groceries better, all these things, right? There's value to it, but this is all things that we have to look at when we talk about protecting data. Again, API communications. But then you also look at the fact that you take a single person, we've got a lot of this stuff, right? It's like Apple Watch, iPhone, car, laptop, thin client machine. All of these things are not only generating data, not only tracking us, but we're also accessing different data sources, even business data sources in the cloud through these devices. None of these devices conform to the same standard of security, right? They all access in different ways. They access with the API, HTTPS, Direct Connect, SIF share, all of the. We don't have a unified method of access. So when we're talking about, again, when we're talking about data and data security in the cloud, we got all of these things to deal with. So, and how do we monitor all of these things, right? Plug for security services. Now, what I think the biggest comment I have is, if you don't know what you have, how the heck are you going to protect it, right? And I'm a huge, you guys who've heard me before, I'm a huge advocate of, you gotta know what's on your network, you gotta know what's happening on your network at all times. Only then can you create solutions to do it. Yes, there's a data overload issue. And there's technologies that are being developed around AI and smart systems to manage that, but you have to be watching, you have to know. Skilled resources, right? There's like no big surprise there. Well, okay, fine, we got skills gap, so we train a bunch of people. Well, that does cost money, right? Money we don't exactly have in our budgets right now. But here's the bigger problem. How the heck do we keep those people? Like the guy from the city. You spend some money from like the police department, you spend some money on your IT people, bring in a new guy off the street, train them. What happens? They're gone. You're back in that cycle, right? Now, good, it's great for the industry. You train somebody, you put them in, and you made the industry better, but it doesn't solve your problem, right? So, not a big surprise there. One of the things, now, again, self-serving, biased comment, but one of the things service providers really offer here is the skills. Service providers go out there, they bring these skills in, they're attracting these skills, they're definitely paying more than some of the other organizations out there, or more than organizations can afford. But what they have is they have this is their core job. So they're going to manage this skill, they're going to develop this skill, and they're going to create products around it. So instead of every company trying to fight that battle, really reaching out to service providers and creating relationships with them, I believe, is going to be how we're going to try to deal with some of these issues, right? Especially in the SMB space that we play in. So can we really create an all-encompassing solution? I think that's a rhetorical question. Good luck. If we can, we'd love to see it, right? But one of the solutions is to centralize the data into something like a data center and put controls on it. Joe, you can talk to policies and procedures till I turn blue, but we talk about, again, you got to have policies and procedures around your data before you can actually implement anything else, right? You got to have your controls, you got to have your rules. You got to have some level of data classification so you're not trying to protect everything equally, right? There's certain sets of data, don't care if it's public. There's certain sets of data you really want to protect. So you put the appropriate controls around that. That obviously leads to security access control. you basically do a lot of kind of FIM, file integrity monitoring, auditing. You make sure you have a great backup strategy, especially dealing with kind of the malware that's out there, right? But to me, again, the most important thing, monitor, monitor, monitor. Know what's going on. Know what's going on with your network. Know what's going on in your data. Who accessed the file? Who printed the file? Who changed the file, right? Who tried to get in the file that shouldn't have had access to the file, but tried anyways, right? These are important things that you want to know because that's how you're going to know something's happening and you're going to be able to protect that. So I'm an advocate of what they call EFSS, Enterprise File Synchronization and Sharing. I kind of have this model of, and this is me kind of creating my ideal solution for the world, right? But basically I have a centralized file store that's encrypted. You have synchronized copies based on your access rights. Now, one of the products I've used in the past is Watchdogs. Love it, love the way it works. I think the Citrix product, ShareFile, is another one, right? Basically, you have these encrypted stores, and everybody has a copy of it, but no one's accessing the store directly. Now, because it's an encrypted copy, you can actually have file integrity. You can actually have access controls on each of those files. So first off, they're only getting synchronized what they have access to, and they can only do the things that you have said they can do on these files. Now, going back to data classification is going to be key to this. You don't have a good data classification strategy, this is going to be painful to manage. But again, what I'm saying is it's one idea on how we can deal with kind of the disclosure around at least the physical files, the files as we deal with it, right? Databases and stuff like that, we definitely need other strategies for. And there are content management solutions around that, again, that could help. However, nothing is better than good architecture, right? If you look at some of the things that we're seeing, Target, Equifax, Facebook is a whole different conversation, but bad architecture, right? There is no reason for your data buckets and your backups to talk to the internet. I can't figure out why you'd even make it internet accessible. I always talk about you have layers, and your data layer only talks to your transaction layer, nothing else. Your SQL servers do not need to talk to the internet. Yes, I get it, Microsoft patches need to be applied. Have a management network, synchronize it through that. Have a WSUS server here, and do your patching. Right? There is no reason for that stuff to get on the internet, and if they're not on the internet, somebody's going to go through multiple layers to get there. And if you look at the kill chain, they got to complete all 8 steps. We got to stop them at 1. Any one of those steps. So put your software, put your controls in to watch that kill chain, but also layer it, right? And I think are we going to be 100%? Absolutely not, right? We're never going to stop every attack. But again, our goal is always, let's make it harder for them to win. And this is where some of the technologies we're going to talk about that Intel's offering. And for me, the biggest part of that is we do these things, but the new Intel chipset basically does hardware acceleration for the things we're doing. So we can do it faster, we can do it better, we can do it with better performance. So why are we talking about this cloud thing, right? Doing the research, I found some interesting stuff. 85% of organizations today actually have this multi-cloud strategy. And when we talk about multi-cloud strategy, we're talking about you could have a VM farm locally in your office. You could have cloud services from AWS, Azure, and even phoenixNAP, and tie all of these together to create a unified processing system. So you're using workloads in the most effective way. You don't want to put every workload you have in Amazon. It costs an arm and a leg, right? Same thing with Azure. Similarly, you may not have the elements you want that Elastic Stack has that we don't have. But you could have certain elements with phoenixNAP. And you could have your dev test in your local environment, right? Why is this a big deal? If you look, I want to say somewhere I saw VMware stats that say they had 82% market saturation. which means everybody has a VMware server somewhere, right? But the problem is that hardware is getting old. Are you going to spend money to keep that hardware up to date? Or are you going to move to a cloud model where their job is to keep their hardware up to date? You're going to leave that hardware for your dev test, get maybe 3 more years out of that hardware, but still have the performance you need by leveraging cloud services. Obviously, major concerns, lack of experience. We saw this when VMware first came out, right? How many of us were around when we go, what do you mean I can't go touch the buttons anymore and see the blinking lights and hit the power switch to recycle it, right? I don't like that. I'm not doing this virtualization thing, right? Same reaction we're seeing now with cloud, right? Security, the interesting thing is these concerns are actually dropping. Now this was data, this is pretty recent, well, it's about a year old, data that I pulled. There's another slice of that, which is basically 90% of the VMware market is looking at migrating into this hybrid model. Biggest reason, I actually found this cool, 82% are concerned about disaster recovery, right? Cloud providers manage this for you. In fact, at phoenixNAP, we actually offer a DRaaS service on top of our cloud services that will actually synchronize your cloud service to one of our other data centers in the world, right? Or back it up and be able to recover it through Zerto or something like that. So there are a lot of technologies today available to handle DR that you don't need to build yourself in your own data center. Hybrid strategy, and again, single control plane. Now this, I think, is work in progress. Cloud orchestration, I think, is our next wave of things, right? Being able to have a single tool that through a single pane of glass can orchestrate all of these things. It's coming. It has to. Right? I just don't think we can be without it. But I don't think we're mature in the marketplace enough for that yet. 95% of organizations experimenting with IaaS, infrastructure as a service. 44 use VMware as private cloud, and that number is actually dropping. So we're starting to see more and more private cloud go away, and we're seeing more and more this hybrid cloud technologies come in, which I thought was interesting too, because I'm just pulling these numbers off the research, just off the internet, right? But we're starting to see these trends. Even somewhere in here, I have an Isaka study that is actually showing that same type of data set. So we're seeing this trend line going in that direction. Being an academic, I had to go into academia and figure out what the heck academia is saying. So biggest thing they did was concern for security. Again, trust in the provider, compatibility. For the Thunderbirds in the room, what's LDC? Less developed countries. So obviously, we're starting to see in the data sets that in less developed countries that don't have the infrastructure that we have here, they're definitely adapting cloud technologies a lot faster than we are, right? And it just kind of makes sense. That's like one of those duh things. But this was a data set. This was Isaka's latest study that they do, where they polled all of the cybersecurity professionals and pulled this data together. This bothered me. I did not expect to see that number that high. Right? Obviously, financial gain, sure, we can easily kind of say, oh yeah, they're definitely trying to get something by attacking. Theft of personal information, we can tell, but there is a lot happening in basically trying to prevent people accessing your service. Now, a scenario we had talked about internally, which is funny, which is, so somebody called a customer service rep, and the customer service rep pissed the customer off, right? Didn't give them what they wanted, they got pissed off. What do? They go on the web, buy a bot, and point it at the company. That scenario real today? We know. Yes. We've seen it. Right? It's very easy. They can go spend $50 and torch that network, right? Is it happening? Oh yeah, it's happening, right? But now we're talking about average customer can go basically attack our infrastructure and really impact the company's ability to do business, right? So that's a concern, and I think that's a big concern that we're going to start to see more and more of. Why phoenixNAP? We're a leader in this space. This is what we do. right? So we've basically been doing this for a while, and we've definitely got the expertise, the technology partners. We've certainly taken on the security focus within the organization, and we've obviously got some awards to prove that, right? So, cloud. When we look at basically creating a secure cloud infrastructure, you obviously start with a proven base, phoenixNAP. You add a global footprint. As you guys all know, we've got multiples. We've got 8 locations now. That's no longer coming soon. That is actually here. So we've added Seattle and we've added Chicago. We've got an AWS cross-connect. We are the only AWS cross-connect in the Southwest. And what that means is you can directly connect into the AWS cloud. I want to say 1 gig and 10 gig into the AWS cloud. So, and obviously we can do it in other locations through other partners, but we've got a direct connect up here, and when you guys go on the tour, you might actually see it. We've got a global backbone. We actually, our backbone's like, I think 1.2 terabits capable right now. We've literally got we got dual TANs to any one of our locations, and we're actually in the process of upgrading to 100 gig backbone. So we've definitely got kind of the expertise, and we make sure this stuff runs. And again, when you go in the data center, you'll see all the different connections we have. There's a wall there with all the different logos and stuff. Threat mitigation at provider level. Again, we talked about the DDoS attack, right? We, as a company, we offer DDoS protection to everybody. We've integrated it into our networking layer that everybody gets it. It's not a service you have to subscribe to or pay for. It is part of our technology. We watch it, we monitor it, we take care of it. Of creating an infrastructure fully redundant, but more importantly, what we've done is we've tied our security services. So we've tied our monitoring technology into our infrastructure itself. So we're doing threat mitigation, we're doing threat management, we're doing it at that network level. We've obviously got a 24/7 NOC, a 24/7 SOC that is doing that, and we've got operations around the world that make sure we've staffed this, right? But we're taking care of these problems right at that technology layer. Highly scalable platform. We talked about the Intel technology that we're using. We're talking about couple of things in the 6100 series is it's designed for heavy workload. It's designed for these type of technologies. It's designed to the advanced vector extensions, the trusted infrastructure, and the hardware acceleration. I think is the coolest thing from my perspective is things like encryption, things like compression. All typically software-intensive processes are now accelerated at the hardware level. And VMware and Intel have exposed these capabilities to each other, so it's just done native by the processor, right? Now, trusted pools. Mitch, you asked this question. So one of the things, the way this is configured, you can create a trusted set of servers, which the chip identifies based on kind of the things that are exposed. You can have this untrusted set of servers, and even if vMotion was bouncing these things around, it is aware. So it's not going to move a secure workload to an unsecure set of servers because it is aware of the processing capability, right? So from a provider level, we can have multiple classifications of processing and give you that service. So if you want a secure workload, we can actually charge you for that, versus an unsecure workload, we can charge you for that, and guarantee that it's going to be doing that. Now, our infrastructure, the data security cloud infrastructure, is PCI certified. We actually went through that, and we did have it audited, and it is PCI certified. So it is cleared for PCI-based workloads. One of the other things we do here is we actually split a hypervisor farm into a compute cluster and a management cluster. Again, we do that on purpose so that any management tasks don't interfere with the compute cluster or basically where the customers are, right? There's another reason for that, which is when we do patches and we do upgrades and we do all these kind of things, we do it in the management cluster. So if we break something on the management side, and we don't affect the compute cluster. Right now we've got test equipment and all of that, right? But again, even in production, we'll start with the management cluster, do everything we need to do, and then if that's all successful and we go through our checks and balances, then we do it on this side. Fully documented, I think the biggest thing, again, we did go through PCI certification, so we've gone through all the processes of documenting this correctly, putting all the processes in place, making sure only people who have access to it should have access to it, et cetera, right? NSX advanced features, so obviously NSX is embedded. And we realized, so VROPS and complete, again, we've designed a hybrid cloud solution. So if you had a VMware instance in your office, you could tie that VMware instance with our cloud and actually share workloads between the two. Again, going back to VMware has what, 82-92% saturation. Somebody's going to have a VMware server somewhere, right? So we've made it easy, and that's kind of the commitment that we made along that. Again, advanced features on the edge. Previous versions didn't have as much robust support on the edge as the new versions do. And we've actually enabled that and activated all of those technologies so you can take advantage. No longer, really kind of reducing the need for going and sticking a firewall VM in front of your infrastructure inside of your virtual cluster to do these services. The edge has now got these capabilities in it. And I think the biggest thing is this, microsegmentation. Right? And when you talk about microsegmentation, literally you can put a firewall on every NIC card, right? So every machine can be its own isolated instance and have strict controls as to who can talk to this machine on what port and what protocol, right? Again, not going to completely stop all the attacks, but it's sure going to stop the WannaCries floating through the network because port 139 and the Windows ports were open, right? It does, caveat, it does take good architecture. You have to architect this solution into your environment. Make sure you do it right, treat it like any other network, but you've now got this capability. In my mind, you've got more capability than you can on a physical network. Like unless you got an SD switching fabric, like a software-defined switching fabric and stuff like that, it is really hard to do this stuff on a physical network, right? Advanced edges we talked about. Again, hardware-enhanced data protection and monitoring infrastructure. Now, we talked about security services at the networking layer. But we also extend our security services into kind of the customer layer. So we can actually provide services like patch management, monitoring, threat management, antivirus, and I'll kind of talk through some of these later as well. We offer all those services as a service offering for our customers. So if you didn't have that capability yourself, especially in the SMB space, we'll offer it. More importantly, one of the things when we started this is we looked at the market, and if you look at MSSPs in the market, they do what I call detect and notify, right? Well, that's great for a business that has a security group, but for the SMB space, especially the area we play in, you can tell them, hey, I see an IOC and it's this CVE that is having the issue, and here are the IP addresses that the attack vector is coming from, and here's how long they've been in the network. It's like, huh? They have no idea what to do with that. So we've been working with Gartner for the last year, and Gartner's been talking about this for over a year and a half, what's called MDR, Manage, Detect, and Respond. Well, what that looks like for us is we've actually added incident response capability into our monitoring services. So we will respond on their behalf. Now, prescribed actions, negotiated actions, right, that kind of thing. If we need to wake you, we'll wake you, but if we can fix it, we'll definitely mitigate the issue. And again, if we need to deploy secondary responders, we've got contracts that we'll actually deploy secondary responders. Because there are certain incidents where, especially if law enforcement's involved, the fox can't watch the hen house, right? So you got to send a third party in to go do the forensics, to do the isolation, freeze the drives, do all that kind of stuff, and we'll take care of that. So we've got an MFA integrated in. We've got IaaS solutions. Now, we've got an internal IaaS solution that we use for everything. So even for our access to customer sites, we've got an IaaS system that we kind of basically ask for credentials and get the credentials and go through that whole process. We have looked at what it takes to do an IaaS service offering for customers. Again, it's huge, right? And it requires a lot of touch points. We will certainly recommend and help a customer through the solution. We haven't figured out how to make that a service offering yet. So when I look, what I call secure by design, when I look at everything we're doing as a company, we've kind of just covered that first line, the secure infrastructure. So this is kind of our internal roadmap as to what we're doing. So we built the secure infrastructure layer. Right, we created this layer. Now we can say, hey, we got this. We've got something to write on top of. We're definitely working on operating system hardening. So if a customer's looking for a secure operating system, we've got the CIS scripts. We've built images around CIS, both Linux and Windows, right? So we'll definitely provide them that to kind of give them guidance on how to do that. But again, two things, right? You got to make sure your processes don't break that. So if you make changes, you got to document it, you got to do all those kind of things, and you certainly need to patch this operating system. And again, when we looked at the industry, there's either no service offerings around patch management, or there's very weak service offerings around patch management. So we said, well, we don't like it, but we're going to do it, because it's important for our customers to make sure we have a patch management solution. And BJ, our chief engineer here, the first day he heard that, he went, what? No. and he still says, I told you that. But the point was, we have to do it because that is the way to take care of our customers' need. Now, if you've got your own custom patch management solution, we're going to interface with it. We're not going to replace it. But if you don't, we've definitely got a solution around that. Data encryption and backup. I always say backup's more important than the encryption side from a recovery perspective. Is we got to make sure we got good backups. And one of the things we bundled in our service offerings really is backups we know how to do. We've done it for years and years, and we do a really good job with technologies like Veeam Cloud and Zerto and all of those things, right? So we've bundled that in to make sure our customer base has that, so that when we do miss something, or we have that customer that basically gets a drive-by that encrypts their drive, we can actually recover it. Obviously, data encryption, then on top of that is, as a standard, we do data encryption at rest within the infrastructure, again, leveraging the tools we have. But we go back to, well, how do we, once that OS is running, how do we have that encrypted and protect that, right? So our security services offering will do either or. So we can bring you into a DSC environment, our secure cloud environment, and do services there. Or we can actually put the tools into your network. We can bring you three things, really. We can bring you in here. Yeah, they have options. We haven't isolated it to one solution. We've anticipated that there will be solutions where we will be within their environment on their site and providing security services for them. Application security, again, this is one area that I don't think we'll have we really have a play in, but what we're doing is we're creating tools like the ability to integrate WAF technologies and stuff like that into the environment, so that we can give our customers the tools to protect themselves and the applications, at least to some level, right? And threat monitoring, again, I go back to, you got to do it. That's just period. That's the core of what we've built in security services. So one of the things, just to make it easy for our customer base, we actually split our service into three different categories. The monitor service standard, MSSP, detect and notify, except that we've actually added backup as hey, you got to have some level of backup service. Whether you do it yourself or whether we do it for you, we're bundling that and making sure that happens. Right? The second service is really around partnering with your IT groups, making sure you're doing patch management, making sure you're doing all these things. Again, if you have the tools, we'll integrate with it. If you don't have the tools, we'll definitely offer the services that we have. And the biggest service is really around, we're your response arm. We'll take care of what needs to be taken care of on your behalf. Well, again, focusing a lot on kind of the SMB space, right? So this is kind of, now we're getting the lecture of good security practice, right? It's like, standard model, IMDR service runs across that whole gambit. Basically, the identify we talked about, the protect services, again, the detect, the response, and the recovery, right? Our DRAS services definitely support that recovery. We're going to help you back it up, make sure it's backed up, and recover from it. Threat detection. Again, this is key. Is the more data points you have, the more you can correlate, the higher the resolution of that picture is going to be. The higher the confidence you're going to have in that IOC, right, in that threat vector. So we've spent a lot of time in looking at and integrating data sources. We're members of ACTRA. For those of you that know or don't know, ACTRA is an organization here, at least in the Southwest, where many organizations have got together and created an agreement that says we will share threat intel in real time. There were 2 messages this morning already of things that are happening live that we already know about and we've got the defense strategies for, right? This is important because today, any subscription out to data sources, they're about 2 weeks old. Because somebody's got to go through it, verify it, do their thing, and then publish it. The same argument around antivirus and antivirus signatures, right? They're about 2 weeks old because somebody's got to process these things. Well, this relationship actually gives us this stuff in real time. Now, sure, there's noise, there's all kinds of things that come with that, but the constant communication we have with all these organizations help us kind of clean that up and deal with that. Also, one of the unique things about phoenixNAP is we're global. We're seeing these things from all the different threat vectors in the world. We can correlate these threat vectors on a much greater scale than a single organization can. So we're going to see them faster. We're going to react to them faster. We're going to be able to correlate them faster. It's getting into how we do it. Custom environment, we basically drop a data collector in. We've got a tool server that we interact with, actually kind of leading to your question. We feed that data over the internet to our logarithm infrastructure. So we use logarithm as our SIM tool. We use swim lanes as our incident orchestration tool. So again, going back to there's more data coming in than we can process. And the more we automate, the more we use AI technologies and orchestration tools, the better and more effective we're going to be. The scary stat for me was it takes us 100 days to detect somebody's in our network. Right, 100 days somebody's been floating around our network and stealing stuff.
This is the bigger us.
yeah, like the industry. We need to bring that down. Because we're not seeing the data. My understanding of looking at kind of doing the research on it is we're not seeing the incidents of compromise. We're not seeing the indicators. And again, eyes on glass, right? How long, what's a human's attention span? They're saying about 90 minutes. So our analysts that are looking at these indicators, after 90 minutes, they're useless, right? And that's a good analyst. So we need other technologies. We need automation tools to be doing this thing and actually bringing up the alert to the analyst versus them watching the screens. We use a ticketing tool, and then obviously we've got integration with all the IAMs, the patch management tools, the vulnerability scanners, all of these things that it takes to run a security group that we can basically offer as a service offering. So, incident response process, I'm not going to get into that. Our service offerings, we definitely are hardware as a service. We offer availability services. We offer our security services, our cloud services, and obviously you're in the data center. Last thing I want to say, if not now, soon, right? And that is not going to work anymore. The other thing we have to realize, we're dealing with humans, right? Humans are hedonistic in nature. They're going to move to the path of least resistance. When we look at our security policies, when we look at what we're doing in security, we have this tendency to put things to make it harder on the human, or things that they have to do to be responsible, and we wonder why it doesn't work. We wonder why they still go click on that link, even though you've told them 100 times don't do it, and you've trained them 100 times. Because they're going to go, oh, it's fine, they should have handled it, they're going to click on it, right? So we really, from a strategy perspective, need to look at how do we deal with this hedonistic behavior and create our security controls and our security processes around that. We need to make it easy on the users, right? Not make it any harder. Again, it's in organizations, we still try to do this ourselves. We still try to do security ourselves, right? And it's getting harder and harder and harder and harder. And I think we go back to, we need help. We need to create some sort of hybrid solution. And again, biased advocacy here of service providers, right? But service providers definitely offer something that even for a mature organization can actually free up resources so that the critical resources are focused more on the critical stuff and not the mundane. Skills are not available. That's just, it's the reality. We've got 6,843 jobs in Maricopa alone that's open, right, Mitch? That's our number. We've got like 1 million jobs worldwide, cybersecurity jobs, that just can't be filled. We can't train them fast enough. So we've got programs in Greater Phoenix Economic Council and through some of the other work we're doing within the state, especially through ACT, we're actually pushing. We're at the high school level now, literally trying to train people on cybersecurity at the high school level. We're taking high school kids to the cyber warfare range and training them to be either hackers or defenders, red team and blue team, right, at the warfare range at GCU. And we can certainly talk to anybody that wants to talk about some of the initiatives around that. That will never be enough dollars. Like, that's just reality, right? It's like we can have all the budget conversation in the world. It's never going to be enough for the tools we need. And my recommendation is assign the risk. Where you can, assign the risk. You may not be able to mitigate the risk yourself, and you certainly may not be able to accept the risk. So really look at solutions where you can assign that risk. And that's my last slide, something to ponder. This is something that, to my team, this is feature request version 10. But what we're looking at is, again, this hybrid, the extension of this hybrid cloud model, where you can have your processing on AWS, you can have your process on Azure, you can have a GSLB, global load balancer, that supports the services. You can have workloads here at phoenixNAP that is going to be less costly than these workloads up here, and you can have your on-prem and tie that all together. And as orchestration tools come to play, you'll be able to do this in a more automated way. Just something to think about as a takeaway of, as we look at our cloud strategies, as we look at our infrastructure strategies, something we can move to. Cool. Any questions?